Hello everyone. Today we are going to have a look at Cognitive Perspective on Intelligence by Anderson. Before that, let's have an idea about John Robert Anderson. John Robert Anderson is a Canadian born American psychologist. He is currently professor of psychology and computer science at Mellon University. Anderson obtained a BA from the University of British Columbia in 1968 and a PhD in psychology from Stanford in 1972. He became an assistant professor at Yale in 1972. He moved to the University of Michigan in 1973 as a junior fellow and returned to Yale in 1976 with tenure. He was promoted to full professor at Yale in 1977 but moved to Carnegie Mellon University in 1978. From 1988 to 1989, he served as president of the Cognitive Science Society. He was elected to the American Academy of Arts and Sciences and the National Academy of Sciences and has received a series of awards. In cognitive psychology, John Anderson is widely known for his cognitive architecture, ACTR, and rational analysis. He has published many papers on cognitive psychology, including recent criticism of unjustified claims in mathematics education that lack experimental warrant and sometimes contradict known findings in cognitive psychology. He was also an early leader in research on intelligent tutoring systems such as cognitive tutors, and many of Anderson's former students such as Kenneth Codinger and Neil Heffernan have become leaders in that area. Cognitive perspective on intelligence. One of the criticisms of Gardner's theory points out that a high level of abilities related to any of the identified manifestations of intelligence, as a rule, correlates with a high level of abilities related to other manifestations of intelligence. That is, that none of the specific abilities is completely independent of the others. In addition, psychologist Mike Anderson points out that Gardner does not clearly define the nature of multiple intellectual abilities. He calls them behaviors, cognitive processes, and brain structures. Because of this uncertainty, Anderson attempted to develop a theory based on the idea of general intelligence put forward by Thurston and others. Anderson's theory states that individual differences in intelligence and individual development related changes in intellectual competence are explained by a number of different mechanisms. Differences in intelligence are the result of differences in basic information processing mechanisms that involve thinking and in turn lead to knowledge acquisition. The rate at which processing processes occur varies among different individuals. For example, an individual with a slow functioning basic processing mechanism is likely to have more difficulty acquiring new knowledge than an individual with a fast functioning processing mechanism. This is equivalent to saying that a slow processing mechanism is the cause of a low level of general intelligence. However, Anderson notes that there are cognitive mechanisms that are not characterized by individual differences. For example, individuals with Down syndrome may not be able to put two and two together, but they are aware that other people have beliefs and act on those beliefs. These mechanisms that provide such universal abilities are called modules. Each module functions independently, performing complex calculations. Modules are not affected by the basic processing mechanisms. In principle, they are automatic. According to Anderson, it is the maturation of new modules that explains the growth of cognitive abilities in the process of individual development. For example, the maturation of the module responsible for speech explains the development of the ability to speak complete sentences. According to Anderson's theory, in addition to modules, intelligence includes two specific abilities. One of them is related to propositional thinking and the other is related to visual and spatial functioning. Anderson believes that tasks that require these abilities are performed by specific processors. Unlike modules, specific processors are affected by basic processing mechanisms. High speed processing mechanisms allow an individual to use specific processors more effectively and thus get higher test scores and achieve more in real life. Moving on to the conclusion, thus Anderson's theory of intelligence suggests that there are two different routes to knowledge acquisition. The first involves the use of basic processing mechanisms that lead to the acquisition of knowledge through specific processors. From Anderson's point of view, it is this process that we understand as thinking and it is responsible for individual differences in intelligence, and the second route involves using modules to acquire knowledge. Knowledge based on modules, such as the perception of three-dimensional space, comes automatically if the corresponding module is sufficiently mature, and this explains the development of intelligence. Anderson's theory can be illustrated by the example of a 21-year-old young man known by the initials MA, who suffered from the convulsion as a child and was diagnosed with autism. When he reached adulthood, he could not speak and received the lowest scores on psychometric tests. However, he was found to have an IQ of 128 points and an extraordinary ability to operate with prime numbers, which he performed more accurately than a specialist with a degree in mathematics. Anderson came to the conclusion that the basic mechanisms of processing in MA it was not damaged, which allowed it to think in abstract symbols, but its linguistic modules were affected, which prevented it from mastering everyday knowledge and communication processes. Here ends a brief idea on the cognitive perspective on intelligence by J.R. Anderson. Thank you.